Let's get a read of all of this to Real Clear Politics Associate Editor A.B. Stoddard, Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk. All right, A.B., to you. How do you think this is going to go today, and what do you think the president is telling House Republicans today?
Well, it sounds like the president should be over in the other chamber talking to Senate Republicans about trying to stay unified over there and get something across the finish line in the Senate chamber, because the House has all but settled their whip count. They know, the members like Congressman Pete King of Long Island, that they're going to lose. They have enough of a buffer, and so they feel confident about passing their bill. I was told by a Republican congressman just this morning they didn't put the mandate repeal in because they didn't think it would pass the Senate. So this is really an issue that could be really politically perilous for Republicans. You have concerns about the deficit, like from Senator Bob Corker. You have concerns about the pass-through language, as you guys have been talking about, that Senator Johnson has. But if you think about, Maine last week voting to expand Medicaid, what that's going to mean, where the repeal votes have fallen apart before, because this politically, if you look at the polling, will be on Republicans. Even though it sounds great that people will they will have a choice to opt out, what it means is sicker, more expensive pools for those who are in it. And the further deterioration of that program will fall on the Republicans, according to public polling. So it's making people very nervous.
Charlie Kirk, I'm just wondering, be careful what you wish for. I know Republicans are scrambling to try to get this thing voted on. But to kind of to A.B.'s point, if they have it with that medical provision or not, the individual mandate or not, I'm wondering about the impact it's going to have when a lot of Americans see their paychecks next year, presumably if this passes and goes through, and they realize that they're not getting a big old tax cut, at least not the one that they thought they would, and then that many of these high-tax states are going to be paying more, and you don't have to be rich to pay more. You could pay more. So couldn't that backfire on Republicans? Not losing the vote, actually winning the vote.
Correct. Yeah, and I also agree in regards to the individual mandate. As much as I'd like to see the individual mandate disappear and break the back of Obamacare, politically, I don't understand why all of a sudden you have to put that into a tax bill. I think it makes it even more difficult.
Well, their
to pass.
logic, as you know, Charlie, was to use that money to try to satisfy these differences. Sure. But I agree with you. I think it was just revisiting a third rail,
yes,
right?
Yeah, exactly. It revisits a third rail, and it reactivates a liberal base that was sort of quiet on this tax bill, at least so far. But I'll say this, as far as the state and local deductions, I think, again, this is a very politically contentious issue, and the thought process is like, well, we don't want to actually, tax some Republican districts or Republican states, but as you know, a lot of Republican congressmen come from these blue states. So I think the thought process here is give the benefit of the doubt to Senate Republicans and House Republicans, is that they think there's going to be an explosion of economic growth when you lower these corporate tax rates. I can understand that to a certain extent, but it's continually getting watered down, as you saw in the Senate version. It's not going to even kick in until, I think, 2019 of January. They want to kick it forward even another year. So,
by the way, we are looking at Peter King as you're speaking, one of those high-tax state Republican lawmakers not satisfied. Let's dip into this for a second.
It raises an issue that certain districts are really going to have to address, and it's up to us to win that fight.
Okay? Thank you.
Congressman, have you seen the allegations against Al Franken?
All right, we just came into the tail end of that, so Charlie, I apologize for that. But A.B., one of the things that Charlie was touching on this is settling all of these differences. But, there are 73 Republicans from high, tax districts spread across half a dozen high-tax states. Now, I know all 73 are not going to vote against this thing, but maybe more than we thought. But the fact that they have scheduled this vote for today in the House must indicate that they've got the votes, or Speaker Ryan is convinced they have the votes. What do you think?
Oh, no, they definitely have the votes, and they knew exactly who would say no, as I mentioned, like Pete King, and they knew that they could lose 20 or however many. So, they're ready to go with their bill. The problem is on the Senate side, and there's with a problem in either chamber, you're going to run up against that December deadline. So it doesn't mean that they can get this through by Christmas. It has to get through the Senate. That's where all the problems have been with the health care repeal and replace. And the Senate is a much more closely divided majority, and it's a divided majority in terms of just, in sort of the policy debate. The ground has moved out from under the Republican Party on this Obamacare debate. So just as Charles was saying, as it sounds good to get rid of the mandate, actually without coming up with a repair of the law, creates more political problems later. And what you were saying, Neil, in these high tax states, if they're looking next year and they're angry and they say this is no middle class miracle, that's going to be very problematic in the midterm elections. If you haven't had the magic growth from the corporate rate cut till after the midterm elections, you're looking at some potential problems in 2020. So politically, this is definitely a risk. Beyond just the concerns of Republicans in different camps ideologically about deficit-funded tax cuts, et cetera. And they're going to continue raising those concerns. I don't think Bob Corker is going to be the only one.